Now I would like to call Geetha Ramachandran for the next session.
Okay, fine. So I would like to briefly stop presenting so I can see the chat box for 2 to 3 minutes, and then I will go back to my screen again. During this talk, I would like to ask you to enter two things in the chat box, two messages. The first message is, please enter the city you're joining from, if you're from India or anywhere in the world. And if you're outside India, please indicate your country as well. And in the same message, please also state the role you play in the team. Some people are quick on the mark and they started sharing their cities already. Brilliant. Agile coach, Scrum Master, various cities in India. Very nice. Okay. Head of people, head of engineering, COO, excellence head, networking center of excellence head. I can't read at the same speed as you're typing, so I'm looking at everything even though I don't read it out. So welcome everybody. Excellent. Okay. So the next thing I would like you to type is, actually before typing, to reflect on. Yesterday, one of our speakers asked you to think about the person you feel the most safe with. I would expand that just a little bit. The good thing about being the final speaker in an event is you can fairly assume that your audience already understands what the core topic is, right? So the term psychological safety, if I were to say to you that it means that as a person, you can speak up without having any fear of being either humiliated or shamed or losing any of your self-image. If I define psychological safety as feeling safe when you speak to another person, think of someone in your life, either family, friends, a work colleague, a teacher, or somebody in the organization that you feel absolutely safe with. Okay, think of this person and ask yourself, why is it that you feel safe with this person? If, say, you were going to be speaking to this person remotely, say Skype, Zoom, Google Meet, any virtual means, would you still continue feeling safe with this person? So first, why you feel safe with this person. Second, also say if you will still continue feeling safe. Excellent. So I see from Chandrasekhar, trust is the reason why you feel you're safe, and yes, still you will feel safe. Not being judged, mutual trust. You know them deeply. Okay, I can repeat. Who do you feel most safe with, that you can say anything and you will still feel safe with them? You do not feel like you will be humiliated or shamed, or you will lose any of your self-image. So you feel safe speaking to the person. And the second part of the question was, if you were to speak to them remotely, say Skype, Zoom, or Google Meet, would you still feel safe with this person? Okay, nice. Okay, so that was a good sample. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to present my screen again. So that's an interesting input we're getting, right? If you already feel safe with someone, what you're saying is it doesn't matter if you go remote or not, you will still feel safe. And that's something to remember. So I'm Geetha Ramachandran. Before I start, I would like to point out something about my logo, because this is something that speaks to my belief. My logo here, you see 3 bits. The first bit on top, I believe, is the individual. The second is the team. And the third is the organization. I believe that as an individual, a team, and within an organization, we depend for our safety and security on each other. The individual nestles in the team, and the team nestles within the organization. And I believe that's important to remember. And my company name, Powerfully Human Coaching and Consultancy, is because of my belief that each and every one of us is capable of doing great things. I genuinely believe that. So who am I? I am, like Jenia said, an Agile practitioner, and I'm also a professional transformation coach. And thank you, Ajay, also for your kind words yesterday and today. I am a founder and director of my company, like I said, Powerfully Human Coaching and Consultancy. I see that a lot of you are familiar. This is an Agile forum, so there needs to be no introduction as to who an Agile practitioner is or who an Agile coach is. Many of you are one. What I would like to focus on very briefly for a minute before I continue with my talk as to what is it I do as a transformation coach, and why do I call myself a transformation coach? Why not any why not a career coach or anybody else? So this is because of a particular specialization I do as a professional coach. I'm accredited with the International Coaching Federation. I have been an Agile coach for about 8 years, and I trained to be a professional coach a couple of years ago. The difference between transactional coaching and transformation coaching is, I believe, if you see this picture here, we all have goals, options, and plans where we are now, where we want to be in the future, what we need to do to get there. All of that is good. It's great. But then there is a certain part of us where we have our values, our beliefs, and the narratives or the stories we tell ourselves. And the thing is, it's hugely powerful to look at the world inside out. There was a speaker yesterday, a couple of speakers yesterday touched upon this too, to first have an internal clarity of who we are, what we believe in, and what stories we tell ourselves before we look at the external world. And then that becomes so much more powerful and doable and more certain, if that makes sense. So I can't see the chat box anymore. So after I finish the talk in 20 minutes, then we'll take questions and any thoughts that you want to share. I'd be happy to see them then. So what do I plan to cover in this talk? My topic, as you know, is X factor of human excellence. I had a bit of a debate as to whether to call it X factor of human excellence or X factor of psychological safety. And I decided that I would call it X factor of human excellence because I believe psychological safety is just the first step. It lays the foundation or the groundwork for us to achieve so much more, and which is human excellence. And why do I want to start with the leadership coaching program that I ran recently? This is because of a certain sense of safe space that I recognize the impact and the power of. This is about a 100-hour leadership transformation coaching program that I ran over the last 6 months in 2020. And when I finished this program, the coachee cohort of this program was a mixed cohort in the sense that I worked through L&D, and we had a mixture of senior leaders, we had managers, we had some team members, and there were some of them who were high potential, according to L&D. And there were certain learnings I got from that, which made me realize a few things about psychological safety, a pattern I noticed. This talk will be a lot of experiential evidence from me, from what I've recognized over the years, and I would like to share it with you. Incidentally, I will then tell you what is it that I believe is the X factor of this and how we scale this factor to benefit teams, roles, and organizations, and I hope that helps you. So what did this leadership coaching program reveal? Like I said, it was 100 hours of transformation coaching with a mixture of senior leaders, managers, and team, both high potential. And I'm not too keen on this word, needing intervention. So I requested L&D that we call this instead a coaching pilot, and we did. And it was interesting that irrespective of where and what challenges someone had before they came into this coaching program, which was a package, each individual went through 6 to 7 sessions, each session being an hour, irrespective of where they started. When each person finished the program and they did a feedback and an NPS score, what we call a Net Promoter Score. If you are not sure about what Net Promoter Score is or how it's calculated, Later on during Q&A, I can clarify. But basically, the feedback and NPS score I had was 100, which was a unanimous 10 by 10 score from all coaches, irrespective of whether they were high potential or needing intervention, so to speak. So every feedback form, it had something very common, which was, it said the safe space that was created in the discovery chat, it made them open up and to discover and explore a lot of new things. There are a few more comments that I share. One of the biggest game changers, someone said, was learning about and using different ways to connect, makes everyone feel included. And it was not just the individuals who were going through this coaching program for themselves, them having a sense of safety, but then when they completed this coaching program and then they go back to their own teams. For example, the last comment is from a leadership team member, a head of department, where he then went and employed his learnings. He used his learnings with his own team. He had inherited a team whose employee NPS score for the management was minus 60. And by applying the skills he received through coaching, he said his team's most recent ENPS score was plus 58. And that was a growth of 118 points, which he said was an amazing turnaround. And for sure, it was a benchmark in the organization. So what is it about the safe space that makes other things possible is something that I would like to explore with you. And what is this thing about X Factor? I'm not sure if you're familiar with the X Factor as a program in the UK. It's a television music competition that was created by a British producer, Simon Cowell, and it's now also run in many different countries. But my purpose of the talk today is not that program, X Factor. What I refer to here by X Factor is to find out what that single variable is, which creates a massive impact on what it is that you are trying to achieve. And that is the X factor of psychological safety that I would like to explore with you today. I would like to first take the interaction each and every one of us have with the other person. And if I were to look back on all the various coachee interactions I had, what do they mean when they say, in the discovery chat, I felt the safe space and I felt that I could open up and say so much more than I thought I would. And many of them said, I did not know what coaching was, but then I discovered that I learned so much more about myself and the others and what I could do, what the others could do. So what was it that makes or creates that safe space? And I realized as a pattern, every time you have an interaction with another person, before you have that interaction, to be in a state of what we call in professional coaching as unconditional positive regard. I do not mean unconditional positive regard in the sense that you have unconditional positive regard to everything the person in front of you says. What I mean by unconditional positive regard is that sense you have for the person's existence as a human being, an unconditional positive regard for their presence. And that is without doubt valid. And you can be unconditional about it. You can suspend judgment about their presence and existence as a human being. And you can have positive regard also in that respect. So if this is the mindset, and if you can still see me on the video, we all have mind chatter. So before you have an interaction, if you can suspend your mind chatter about what the surface behavior it is about the other person that bothers you, if it does, and just to stay in that state of unconditional positive regard, and when they speak during the interaction, to have a sense of curiosity. I have a deep interest in transactional analysis and systemic constellations and therapy techniques, and I use many of them in my coaching work. And the state of curiosity we call in transactional analysis as in being in a free child mode. That doesn't matter. That ego state doesn't matter. However, if during a transaction, if you could keep yourself in a state of curiosity, even if there were anxiety, if you could reframe it with moving into this curiosity space during the interaction, listen to what the person has to say, and after they've spoken, adopt a sense of yes and. Those of you who are in the agile space, you may have heard of this yes and. Sometimes this is differentiated from yes but. And if this is a 20-minute talk, so I cannot use an exercise to demonstrate, but if, say, for example, I said I had noodles last night, and then someone else says yes and they build on top of that, that is a different kind of experience I have, having said that I had noodles last night, to if I were to say I had noodles last night, and then the other person says, yes, but the minute you say but, I feel a sense of anxiety. Ooh, what are you going to say to refute me? Or what did I say wrong? And that is where the heart of psychological safety lies. And if you can adopt a mindset of responding to what the other person has said from yes and, it may be the case that you disagree with the other person, what the other person says, and that's okay. But then to say yes to the fact that the person has a right to express themselves, and then say and express your view. It is like somebody said, you disagree agreeably, and that is at the heart of it. So I hope that makes sense, that before you start the interaction, have a state of unconditional positive regard. During the interaction, have curiosity, and after the interaction, adopt a sense of yes and before you say anything in response to what the other person said. That, I believe, in a nutshell, is what I think is the X factor to making anyone feel safe, in trusting you, in feeling safe with you, and you feeling safe with them. Please do share later if you agree that this small X factor of 3 ingredients, you also believe that this will help you in your interactions. Now, how do you scale it? Say, for example, we are talking about a workplace situation here, right? And the title of this whole event is Psychological Safety in Remote Teams. You've already said that if you feel psychologically safe with someone, this someone that you thought about, you've also said that going remote doesn't necessarily change anything. You still feel psychologically safe with them. So that means that the distance aspect, it may not be the key cause for missing or having psychological safety. There could be other reasons why someone does not feel psychologically safe. And here again, I repeat, psychological safety is the sense of you being able to speak up without feeling any negative shame or humiliation, having the confidence, putting it positively, having the confidence that you can speak up with dignity and with confidence. So the question is, are there other factors at play within teams and within organizations which could be having a bigger or deeper impact on psychological safety? Again, each team is different, each organization is different, each individual is different. So the cause for affecting psychological safety could be different for you. And like I said, this is an experiential kind of sharing what I have seen over the years in this space. So what I have seen is, in terms of the kind of cause that results in a lowering of psychological safety, we saw distance. It could be language, especially in a day and age where we work globally. I was working with a fully remote team. I never saw the team for 6 months, and I was in the UK and this team was in Bulgaria. There was one person who frequently got into trouble with the rest of the UK team with little things, like he said, like, say, for example, somebody here would say something and he would say, this is a joke. And people thought that that was offensive until we made a visit to Bulgaria once from the UK, and we learned that this person was highly respected within the team in Bulgaria. He was a senior person. He had a great sense of humor. And what he meant, his English language limitation, was when he said, this is a joke, he meant that this is funny. But the way it was represented made people here feel like it was some kind of an insult. So that is something to be aware of. Is that a challenge? Does that create sense of reduced psychological safety? That's something only you can tell. And how about hierarchy? For example, whether you're within the same team or same level, or if you're more senior, how does hierarchy feel within your organization? Does it create a sense of lesser psychological safety? Do people still feel safe to speak up? How about your leadership style if you're a leader? This is again not a session to look into leadership styles, but there are various leadership styles, the two extremes being a coercive style, as in do as I tell you kind of style, or you have an affiliative style where you focus more on the relationship you build with people. Or could it be a belonging? Are you a contractor? Are you a permanent member? Are you from a supplier? Are you from within the parent company? Where does this belonging come from? Or how about seniority? I'm a developer, and if I say that if I'm a developer, I have 5 years experience, you're a junior, you're an apprentice, does that make someone feel more vulnerable? Or how about role type? If you are a you're in the product space, or if you are a change agent like a scrum master or an agile coach, does that make a difference? So the first suggestion I would make is gauge one root cause to work on within your organization. Maybe run a retrospective if you have the habit of running retrospectives, and get a sense of which is the biggest cause that could be impacting psychological safety in your team or organization. Or if you do not do frequent retrospectives, you could also gauge your team's psychological safety. Yesterday, the Professor Amy Edmondson was mentioned, and today you also heard about the Google experiment, where Google did a lot of studies, and initially for a year or two, they came up with nothing. They could not determine what the difference was between teams that differentiated them from being a high performance team versus another. There were a few factors, yes, but then, like someone said today, psychological safety was considered to be quite key. If you would like to get a quick sense of where psychological safety is within your team, you could run a little questionnaire. Again, thanks to Amy Edmondson, who identified these questions. If you make a mistake in this team, it's often held against you. People on this team sometimes reject others for being different. It is difficult to ask other members of this team for help. Members of this team are able to bring up problems and tough issues. It is safe to take a risk in this team. No one on this team would deliberately act in a way that undermines my efforts. Working with members of this team, my unique skills and talents are valued and utilized. If someone enters strongly disagree for the first 3 questions and strongly agree for the last 4 questions, you know that you have psychological safety. That person feels psychological safety. Do a gauge of this to get a sense of where people are in your team and organization. Once you find out, it's time to act. Find ways to enable psychological safety. Engage senior management to recognize this deep need. I believe psychological safety is like the ground we walk on, right? We need to have a firm ground, and then we can run, we can jump, we can do many more things. But psychological safety as a fundamental need needs to exist, where people can speak up, they can share ideas, they can share concerns. It doesn't always have to be a negative connotation to it. It could be a great positive connotation. The previous speaker spoke about innovation, and that triggers innovation, ideas being expressed, being able to express your ideas, feeling proud about it, and everybody respecting it and giving a year to it, irrespective of where you come from, what you do. It doesn't have to be that you play the same role in order to give an idea in it. You can give an idea about anything in your organization or team, and create awareness of this X factor of unconditional positive regard, yes and thinking, and curiosity as you listen. And this X factor, I believe, will shift something deep within your team and organization, and you will find that the impact is quite powerful. And I would say, if you can, I call this in the next point, practice and persist. And in practice, I've put an asterisk mark and mentioned Peter Senge's practice fields. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with Peter Senge's work, The Fifth Discipline. What he refers to as practice field is, say, for example, a sportsman or a sportswoman would do a lot of practice, right? And then they perform. A pilot would do a lot of training before they fly. It's only in our professional setup that we directly go in and we expect to perform without taking practice. So to be able to practice is to say, for example, here in the second point, I say that help teams understand that all have a part to play. So if you are a team member, have one-on-one conversations where you practice the application of this X factor, having a sense of unconditional positive regard, a sense of curiosity, and a sense of yes and practice with one person, see the difference it makes in your interaction, and then try and expand it to your team. And it may be the case that you are trying it, and perhaps you feel sometimes that the others don't, but that's okay. When someone sees that they feel respected and listened to by you, trust me, this sense propagates like anything. It's a culture that you set into motion, then becomes quite powerful. And that's what I mean when I say practice and persist. And if you are a leader, especially, you can have a huge impact by not only speaking about this, saying this, but to also practice what you say that people should be doing. I wanted to share a brief on a few things I do normally to help teams with psychological safety, right? I created a workshop a few years ago. I call them Johari workshops. In reality, some of you may or may not have heard of Johari, as in, like, how much of I know, what I know about myself or what the world knows about me. So it's a good thing to look it up. What these are really a quick Team 360 way of strength and improvement profile workshops. With this Bulgarian team, for example, I literally had half an hour in the one day that we spent at their site. And during this half an hour, I ran the strength and improvement profile workshop, or the Johari workshop. And the people outside were surprised how much laughter came from this room to share each other's strengths. And like I said, it's like a Team 360, a quick one. It has a certain format that works every single time. I've run it at away days. I've run it for over 25, 30 teams by now, and not a single time has it not worked. It does work. So there are ways in which you can create workshops, you can run, you can ask. There are certain things like, even if you have meeting cards, like meeting spicer cards, to ask questions that make people reflect, that ask questions that make people want to share. You can do so many things to create psychological safety. And I also facilitate change agent transformation workshops for Scrum Masters and Agile coaches, where this is a new endeavor that I would like to start shortly, and I would like to open it up to other time zones and do it online. And I also offer coaching packages for personal and team transformation for everyone in the organization. And I have a special focus program like I did recently, the 100-hour leadership transformation program. And that's something also I run. That is the gist of what I wanted to share with you today. And thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I would like to ask you if you have any questions for me.
Thank you, Geetha. Thank you for your presentation. I'll help you with the questions of the participants. So the first question is from Amar. So he's asking, COVID time, everyone fears firing, layoffs due to cost cutting. How can we create psychological safety for our teams?
Okay. So there is something about a difficult situation happening, right? The first thing that we do is to accept that and to acknowledge that. That is the first step towards creating psychological safety, to acknowledge amongst us that, yes, this is happening. Yes, this is difficult. And yes, I do not know any more than you do. That would create a sense of support amongst each other that nothing else will give you, if that makes sense. And then we look at new skills discovery. If there is someone who is really going to be made redundant, then maybe look at possibilities of helping them, maybe work with a coach perhaps, or work with someone who can discover new skills discovery, or find out what is it that they are strong in and how they can find another role that would suit them help them and support them in doing that. So what I would say to that is, while you can't change the situation unfolding, what you can do to increase the psychological safety is to acknowledge, accept, and to support. I hope that helps.
Okay, so the next question is from Harish. He's asking, is every human has a great potential is a myth or reality? If it is a reality, then why company layoffs?
Every single person has a huge potential. I genuinely believe that. As a coach, when I sit across from a coachee, irrespective of where they come from or where they start, I see it actually happening, that they are able to do great things and they go on to do great things. Sometimes it's a matter of fit, whether your strengths are needed within the company in which you're working, or whether you're better off elsewhere. And that's okay, right? Just because you have to leave a company doesn't mean, it doesn't reflect on you as a person. It reflects on the fit for that company and for you. So all it takes is to relook at yourself to see what you enjoy the most, what you're really good at, and the world is your oyster. Go and look out. If you have to knock on 100 doors, if 80 of them don't open, that's okay. Focus your energy and your intent on the 20 that will, and that's where you will find a space to work in which you enjoy and the company benefits from the value you bring.
The next question is from Chandrasekhar. Sometimes in meeting, colleagues or higher ups put down ideas. How to overcome this?
Yeah. So the first step to do is, it takes courage to be able to say or share how you felt. The way we think of it within the therapy world, for example, or even as human beings, right? Emotions are something which happens instantly. Even before we can think, emotion happens. Fear, anxiety, happiness, joy, whatever it may be. There are a variety of emotions human beings face, and the emotion happens first. And then you have thought, then you have behavior. So that's the typical sequence in which we see these things happening. So the very first emotion that you describe, how you feel when a higher up says something, there is a case of hierarchy happening there. And to recognize that that's how you feel, to be able to express that in a way that you still feel dignified. And once you express yourself, to then understand, is it something that about you? It may not be about you at all. It may be about something that that person, higher up or not, has experienced that day. Maybe they had a bad day and they've said something. So ask yourself, is this about me? Maybe it's not about me at all. So then you will suddenly, that thought will bring you back to a sense of rebalance, where you start looking at the situation differently. If this were not about me at all, then how the person reacted doesn't matter. I do not have to feel the way I do, because I know who I am and I know what is it I've said. And I know the value I have brought to the table with whatever it is that I said, and help the other person understand that. And I'm not saying it's easy, which is why I said, if you were to scale psychological safety and this X factor, it has to be a collective effort. You can make a small start with your own courage and how you put it across, and that's a start. And definitely that will help in that interaction with that person. That's something you can try. Let me know if it works, but I have found that it does.
Okay, so we can take the another question. It is from Neeraj Agarwal. He's asking how a leader asks about team about him from individual team member.
Yeah, good question. So when I coach leaders, there are 5 questions I suggest that they ask. These are 5 simple questions. They go along the lines of, what strengths do I bring? What value do I create? What do you believe is my biggest accomplishment? What is the one thing that you would like me to change for my own benefit? What do you value most about me? These are five simple questions. If you were to put it in either a Google form, for example, or a BCC and send it to at least five people or all your team members, the things that you get back from them, it is an eye opener. It really tells you this is a psychologically put together set of questions, which not only taps on what strengths you bring to the table, but it also helps to pinpoint one change that that person would advise you to do that you could do for your own benefit. So that keeps you and the others psychologically safe, but it also gets you the feedback from your team. And I hope that helps.
Yeah. Thank you, Geeta. Thank you for answering all the questions. So we take all the questions offline as we we don't have much time. So we have to wrap up. So thank you, Geeta. Thank you for your presentation and session, and it was a wonderful sharing. Thank you.